Floor is all yours.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you so much, panelists. I mean, truly appreciate. It's a big political night, right? So, and I was just joking around with people. If you like your business folks more than your political folks, this is the time to come and join us, right? So, well, thank you so much again. And thank you to all the viewers for the same reason. I mean, thanks for joining us today. Well, let me begin by saying, right, that, and we all love to say this, that hindsight is always 2020. And it has never been more true than what it is today. It is really 2020, right? I mean, if we can just go back few months, we all will make a lot of different decisions. And it's not just about us making different decisions. I guess it's across countries, across continent, and really all fields across the board that people have different thinking altogether. I mean, these are the rare times where if you look at it, somebody who invented a company has just been as important as somebody using the app of that company and delivering the groceries to you folks, right? Or somebody has been as important as the CEO of a company as probably the cleaning person, making sure that whatever percentage of people can come inside can really truly come inside. So it's a very unique time. But today, what we're gonna do really is, there is a hope aspect. I mean, are there challenging times? Is there a hope? And the second part really is the opportunities. If history has taught us anything, it's really that that opportunities are plenty, especially for those who can think outside the box. So we're going to focus on those two. And for that sheer reason, we have called people who are extremely successful in this society. In Indian American communities, I don't think that they need much introduction. We all can spend literally an hour each with all of them. And we are trying to squeeze all 4 stars of Indian American community in just 60 minutes. So if we kind of rush on and off sometime here and there, please do pardon us. With that, without really wasting any time, I don't want to take too much screen time. Let me just go the way I see the screen. So I'll start with Anu. Anu, why don't you go and please introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Anu Chitraku. I work for Bank of America, and I also am the president of TIE Boston. Just took over in June of this year, so for the next 2 years. What else can I say? I have grown up in corporate America, so I'm very close to corporate America, and corporate America is very close to me. And the last thing I will say is, whatever I say today are my own personal views. They are neither the views of TIE Boston nor of Bank of America.
Thank you. Now, moving on to in the same view, in the screen side, the next is Pam. Pam, please go ahead. Pam, you are on mute again.
You're on mute, yeah.
No, you are still on mute.
No, actually, I don't see her on mute.
Not on mute.
Okay. So, Pam, why don't you figure out, and in that, till that time, let me go to Raminder. Raminder, please go ahead.
Okay, so I think based on the way Anu introduced herself, it seems like we define ourselves just by what we do. I don't define myself by what I do. I define myself in 2 different lights. I am a person and I'm a professional. As a person, on my personal front, I am married to the love of my life, have 2 sons who are not close to us geographically, not close to us in our professions, but really close to us in our hearts. Professionally, I am Dean of the Berlin School of Business. For those of you who don't know the school, it is the same school that Sanjay Kudrimati teaches in. And it is actually one of the largest schools at Salem State University. And Salem State University is one of the largest state universities among the 9 state universities within the state of Massachusetts. So that's what I do. And then what exactly I do for Dean, we can talk about it later as we get into more discussion about it. But I didn't want to just define myself as just a Dean. You know, I define myself more as a mom and a wife and a friend and a daughter than I define myself as a Dean.
Right.
I always say it's all by the grace of God.
Please continue. I was going to joke that I hope you and Professor, our own professor, do not get into a colleague fight or something. I'm just kidding.
Well, now that she has become Dean, I will be controlling it.
Good. Well, let me go to Pam now. Pam, are you on now?
No.
Okay, I think Pam, we cannot hear you. So why don't you log off and log back in?
I'm gonna do that, yes.
Oh, now we can hear you.
Oh, you're okay now.
Go ahead. Okay, no, there is some technical issue. So please do log back in. So let's go to the Sushil Tuleji in the meantime. Of course, like I was joking, none of you really need an introduction. Everybody knows Sushilji as well. But Sushilji, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the community again?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Prag, Sanjay, for inviting me to be on this panel and to be in the company of Anu, who is awesome, Raminderji, and Pam. So I'm so happy to be here. My name is Sushil Tuli, and I'm the founder and CEO of Leader Bank. I used to say founder, president, CEO, and all that, but president is my son now, Jay Tuli. So I'm the CEO, chairman of the board. And I founded Leader Bank in 2002. And the reason I did was, which is unusual, Indians don't find banks. Indians go in technology field, medical field, all those. Nobody thinks about finding a bank, but I decided that I want to open a bank because to serve the immigrant and low to moderate community and immigrants and general public. And it has done really good. Started the bank with one branch, $6.5 million in assets. We are over $2 billion in assets now. We have 7 branches, about 260 employees. I take a lot of pride in what we do, helping create so many jobs, but more than that, helping small business owners, home buyers, everybody else. And I know Anu works for one of the largest bank, Bank of America. I'm a very small banker, but we are very proud of what we do.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Sushilji. And we have Pam back with us. Pam, let's see if we can hear you well.
Third time is the charm. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you with a little bit of a lag, I guess, but please continue.
Okay. Well, I want to thank IAGB for inviting me to this panel. I am Pam Randhawa, founder and CEO of Empirical, an early stage biotech company. We have developed our drug discovery platform. It's a synthetic liver technology, and we are working on antiviral compounds. And we are also working on the next generation of personalized diagnostics. It is really meant to treat the chronic complex patients at home. And this will be first of its kind, a major platform that we hope to bring to home. And this is, we started working on this way before COVID, several years before COVID, little that we recognized that during COVID, how important this is going to be, where you have to social distance. It's highly infectious condition, and treating patients at home is going to become very, very important. So that's where our company is, and I serve on the Mass Life Science Center. It's a $1.6 billion investment fund for state of Massachusetts. We invest in life sciences companies for promoting innovation, creating jobs, and I also serve on the board of Mass Bio and also on the Council for Biotechnology for the World Economic Forum.
Got it. Thank you so much, Pam. And while normally, trust me, Professor and I, we both love to just talk on policies. But when we got the 4 stars of business word, we kind of made a conscious decision that we will not necessarily go too heavy on the policy, but really kind of make it a session where the Indian American community can really take few pointers out, right from being an entrepreneurial spirit that we see in our community to really taking the other side as well. And if there is a challenge in the community, can they really take out, do they have some takeaways from the session? So let me kind of what I heard, Pam, you talking about several years back. It's not like COVID, but I'll put it this way, right? That the COVID has really forced us to think, and let's take healthcare as an example, your field of expertise, right? That healthcare was never supposed to be about cost. If we just go back last 5-10 years, and without sounding political on that front, there has been a lot of complaint or promotions on both left and right side about how Obamacare has really brought in 50-55% more cost to the healthcare industry. But I mean, should we really see healthcare as a cost, or do you truly believe that it's really an investment? And from that angle, it really forces a lot of people in the community to really treat this as a great field to get in, because this truly should be an investment. But what's your take when you look at healthcare as a cost versus investment debate?
Well, I think healthcare is, in my opinion, is an investment. It's a public good consumed privately, right? And so I think that investment into the public health system, to the healthcare, is very, very important. I think the question about the Affordable Act is that the cost has gone up. Certainly. Cost should not always be the driver, what we want to achieve, right? But the fact is, because people have to pay for it, it has to be accessible and affordable, right? So the question is more from a, really analyzing the data and looking at, which segment where the cost has gone up. So I think instead of focusing on the Obamacare itself, I really rather focus on the larger picture. And the larger picture is that, even though we spend like $3.7 trillion into the healthcare, and at 1960, we spent $27 billion. It's about 20% of the GDP. And we spend substantially more on healthcare, but our outcomes are still much lower than any other country. So I think that spending more does not mean that you're getting more, right? And it's not a one thing. I think it's a multiple things. And COVID really exposed that. Because what we recognize, the weakness of public health system, not just in the United States, but across the world. You would expect from lower to middle income countries, but you wouldn't expect this type of a response from the upper income countries. And we've seen that it's not that much of a difference. So I think that what we recognize, the spending more does not mean that you are going to have the best system. And there are differences between, countries, Europeans versus US versus, lower to middle income countries. And I think in this US specifically, we have a lot of inefficiencies in our system. We don't necessarily focus as much on sort of the personalized care. We don't focus as much on the preventive care. There are a lot of other inefficiencies in the healthcare system. We've seen the supply chain completely broken down. And so there's so many different areas that we have not focused on. As a result, the costs continue to go up, but we really didn't see any outcomes. And that's where I think we have to focus as a healthcare system. And this also might mean a personal responsibility that we may have to adhere to a treatment and be in compliance. That may mean also that we may have to be more physically active, right? That also may mean that we may need more training for the healthcare providers. That may mean that certain types of technologies that could improve the outcome, the clinical outcomes, that we need to invest more on those. Right. So this is, to me, is the overall, public health system that needs that overhaul versus keep looking at that, okay, we got to spend more and more money. And so that's where I leave it at that for now.
No, really, you got quite a few great points. And again, like spreading it across, because cost is in healthcare. Now we have Raminder, who is in the education field. And before I go to Raminder, actually, I want to go to Sushilji, because right now, the current discussion that is going on, especially like yesterday, if you saw the market tanked 350 points, today the market went up 500. And the main reason was about whether will we be spending, and again, the cost, the spending, right? Whether it's an investment or whether it's just expenditure. So Sushilji, from the bank perspective, this new money, new influx that might be coming in, and even Federal Reserve Chairman also said that it's very, very important right now. Some fiscal policy, some infusion of dollars are needed into the economy. So as a banker, what do you see? How do you see this money? How critical it is for the economy to keep chugging along?
It's Sanjay, very important, because, and more important is people saving money and spending less. What we want to see at the bank is, especially during this COVID situation, that people are not just making money and spending all of it, that they need to save it for rainy days. And this influx of money which is going to come is going to help the economy overall, because so many jobs are being lost right now. And businesses, small business, every day we hear so many businesses are closing. And this money which will come in, it will help all of them there.
This okay. And Raminder, from the education perspective, how critical it is for the public, especially for like education from kindergarten to high school and also for higher education. How critically are we dependent on the new money that is expected to come in or hoping to come in beyond the stock market is what I'm saying.
Well, there was plan in the, that there was some money in the previous CARES Act that came to education, very small amounts, but it didn't really do much because at Salem State, we got about $3 million out of that entire CARES package, where billions were supposedly paid to higher education. But Salem State had already given back $4.5 million to students for refunds on their housing and dining and all of that kind of stuff, right? So that 3 million didn't really do anything. It still left us $1.5 million in the hole. There was plan in the new CARES Act or CARES Act 2 or whatever we want to call it.
Heroes Act, I think they're calling it.
Heroes Act.
Heroes.
Right. Heroes Act. And again, there was plan to give out about $50 billion or something like that to education. But now that's all kind of thrown out. We don't know, maybe tomorrow President Trump will wake up and say we are giving it. I mean, today he said we are giving it to some sectors. He wants to have some kind of a deal for some sectors, but not the others. So we don't know where that is going to go. But what I wanted to point out actually was that the education system in the United States, just like the healthcare system, needs to be publicly funded. There are funds being provided by the federal government and the state government to educational institutions, both to public and institutions, by the way. But we need to keep in mind that almost 75% of high school graduates go to public institutions, right? Only about 25% go to private institutions. But when you look at the total amount of funding that the government provides, if you take the funding that the federal government provides and the state governments provide nationally, it's only a total of about $160 billion. And there are approximately 18 million students in four-year public colleges and private colleges combined, right? That only works out to about $9,000 per student.
Right.
And you know how much they are paying per inmate in the Department of Corrections? $26,000. So $9,000 per student per year and $26,000 per inmate per year.
Got it. So,
I mean, I think about it and I say, well, you know what? Give us the inmates. We'll train them, give us the $26,000 per inmate, and they'll actually contribute to the economy.
What a wonderful point, Ravinder. But actually, you highlighted something, and I don't want to lose on those few pointers there, right? I mean, be it in the direction of inmate or be it in the direction of how this allocation happened. Let me go to Anu, because one thing I'll tell you, Anu, that lately, since you have become president of TIE, the thing that I really loved about the vision of the new TIE team is, under your umbrella, that you are trying to, let's say, deviate a little bit from whatever we were hearing for the last 20 years about TIE Boston, which is that it is actually for the entrepreneurs who have already been successful. And I loved hearing, I don't remember which interview you said it, that you want to take it to the people who are actually wanting to be a successful entrepreneur, right? And when it comes to that, the diversity, the immigrant population, that really kind of lacks some of those accessibility, to Raminder's point, right? I mean, so how would you take it? I mean, do you see that gap day in and day out where in the name of diversity, in the name of immigration, some people are constantly losing?
Yeah, I mean, I think equality of opportunity is the most important thing in anything, right? Be it access to capital for entrepreneurship or education, like we were just talking about, or whether it's like investment in healthcare, whatever it is, I feel a person, any individual should have equality of opportunity. And I'm not really deviating from TIE. I mean, TIE's mission has always been to foster entrepreneurship. But I do think that now more than ever, entrepreneurship is sort of taken center stage. And that entrepreneurship also has to be an equal opportunity for everyone, right? So it's not just the people who have money who can now say, oh yeah, you know, my dad has money, so now let me take that and dabble in entrepreneurship. Or I have a big nest egg sitting in my house, so now I can quit my job and I can go into entrepreneurship. So how can you make entrepreneurship more accessible and equitable? And that is where we are putting a lot of focus in TIE. The thing is, the TIE charter members are very successful, and you know, they have all risen the hard way. They all came to this country. You'll hear these stories with $8 in their pocket, right? And now they're providing employment to so many people. They've like built large enterprises, contributed to the economy. They've done a lot. So they are the real teachers now, because they teach through experience. And that is what we want to do, is take their experience and help those entrepreneurs, whether they are in minorities, as in, you know, women are, I still consider them minorities in that field, or even, you know, minority communities, economically suppressed communities, and how do we build entrepreneurs out of them, and also provide these equal opportunities to them.
Got it. No, very well said. And I think from that angle, if you go back to, I think Sushilji was talking about it, right? And I'll put it this way, which professor has started, Raminder was also talking about the CARES Act, right? So Sushilji, let me ask you this question. I always wanted to ask you, so glad to have you on the forum. So, and kind of going back to what I was just saying to Anu, that we look at the successful folks, we look at the successful entrepreneurs, and we kind of leave the society behind, which really struggles. So during this whole CARES Act, the PPP, please tell me that Leader Bank has been different than the large banks that are there. So give me some example where, and I'll give you my example. It really feels sad to me when I go to Sri Lakshmi Temple and cannot have dinner at Dosa Temple. And I don't know the story of Dosa Temple, but they are shut down. And there are tons of examples like that, right? So please do tell me that Leader Bank is actually not only approaching these people, but has really opened their heart for Indian American community, where people, if they have a struggle, they can really reach out to Leader Bank, and Leader Bank will be there to really help make this happen. Please go ahead.
So Pra, great question. But Anu being the senior officer of Bank of America, and here I am Leader Bank, there were two different things during PPP, the views of big banks and small banks. Small banks for like Leader Bank, our goal was to help out small business owners. And what we did was, at Leader Bank, whether you're a client of Leader Bank or you are not a client of Leader Bank, we wanted them to apply for PPP loans with us. And we honestly, like within a day or 2 days, we were reserving money for them, because we knew that this money is going to run out of it. As long as they submitted correct papers, we reserved money for them. And we helped hundreds of customers who were not our customers. Because our goal was not that, okay, if you don't do business with us, we're not going to help you. Our goal was, you are a small business owner, you are in Massachusetts. We only limited it to Massachusetts because this is where we are located. We are going to help you out. And I tell you, the thank you notes I got from them, and those small business owners are my current clients now. So our goal was that these people should not go out of business. And you mentioned the restaurant, dosa thing, which is going out of business. Small restaurants, they really got hurt because they make only limited income, and now they don't have it, but they have expense. Their expenses are not going away. They still have to pay rent, they still have to pay utilities, and they have to maintain some employees. So our goal was, let's help them out. Give them as much money legally we can give them, And that's what we did. We did about $130 million worth of PPP loans for about 1,600 clients.
Nice.
Out of those 1,600, good number of them were who applied for 50,000 or less. Lot of banks took the approach that, oh, we're gonna do if they are not applying for $1 million, it's not profitable for us, why bother? Our case was we actually put a limit that you could do a PPP loan up to 5 million. We put an internal limit that if anybody wants to apply for more than $2 million, we don't want to entertain that client. And our lowest, somebody applied for $7,800. And I think that customer was as valuable to me as somebody who applied for $1 million.
Got it. Very
So
nice.
let me do one thing. You are the financier, right? You are the one who provides the capital. But if I look at the balance sheet on the asset side, and especially given the current political environment where the Republicans are with the America first, and even the Democrats now build in America is what they are doing. So the talk out there is that bring the production back. So while we have the entrepreneurship here, the question that I want to ask actually the entire panel here is, on the building side, on the healthcare side, or as entrepreneurs, do you see production really coming? And to Raminder, I want to ask, do we have the human capital there? Do we have the graduates, are they equipped with those skills to really bring the production back to US today? So let me start with the production side. So Pam, do you have an idea in the healthcare industry? Are we ready to of course, we are not going to build the bridges and the make the steel, but whatever we are producing, are we ready? Are we there today?
Well, we're not there today, but I think that we are making good progress in that respect. I can just give you an example of state of Massachusetts, our Mass Life Science Center where I serve on the board. We have invested already into companies that are making PPEs in general. I don't want to focus on one area, but PPEs in general. The companies that actually are making it more affordable and sort of a rapid manufacturing. So there's a huge focus on, whether that's a essential medication list or, APIs, because that has been a major problem. India being 48-50% of the generic drug exporter, even they get all the raw materials from China. So that has become a real bottleneck, and we recognize that. So the U.S. strategy is really to make sure that as much of production we can do here, but also supplement that with not just one player. There could be India, it could be Vietnam, it could be other countries that are also participating. So we don't have, we're not relying on one country if something were to go wrong. Aside from having that increased capacity here in the U.S., we're seeing that investments, that are taking place in the manufacturing side, whether we are doing the, cell manufacturing to PPEs, to medication lists, to APIs, devices, all of those, the range is quite large. And if I could just give you my personal sort of the story from what we are doing, we are building technology that potentially many of the components can be 3D printed. So, additive manufacturing can take place, but you really have to do R&D accordingly. You can't just say all of a sudden that, I already have a product, now I'm going to try to do 3D printing to make it more affordable. You really have to change the R&D model, and you have to build those technologies that actually can scale and be affordable. One of the challenge that so much of the manufacturing moved to China or other parts of the world was the costs. Because, the governments were able to provide subsidies, and there were other tax incentives. The labor cost was very low. But if you start to look at now, that labor cost is actually changed now. It's quite high. So it's no longer, that you have a huge gains in the cost, per, for goods, that it doesn't even make sense anymore, aside from the scenario we're facing with COVID, that it has to come down here. I know the different states have been looking at, how they can make investments and attract these entrepreneurs in their own states, Massachusetts being one of them, and there are a number of other states that have also created the funds like Mass Life Science Center. California has one of them, New York copied us. And so that is going to happen. I know in my own circle, number of entrepreneurs have new sort of the ventures that they have established in a recent sort of the weeks and months into that. It will take us a while to get to where we need to get to. But the good news is that the investments are being made and entrepreneurs are interested. They are bringing new technologies. Academia is participating heavily. I mean, we invested in, one of the technology for ventilators it's a portable technology at MIT, coming from MIT, that was from the Mass Life Science Center. We have invested in Broad Institute to scale the testing, for example. So we continue to do that. We have a number of programs. We continue to do that. Now, if you talked about human capital, that's a really, really important, and is so much more actually sort of critical in our area, because the whole spectrum, whether you take therapeutics, vaccines, diagnostics, or even digital health, you need highly specialized people. And they have to be trained in the STEM fields to be able to get there. So state of Massachusetts have made those investments from high school all the way up. And so that has been, we've been doing it for over 10 years now. And so that really has paid off. We have still a long way to go, nationally, to invest heavily into that education and attract more, graduates in the STEM area. And that, again, would take next couple decades to get there. But the use is good.
In short, Pam, with the right technology mix that we can offer, a Buy America dream is possible. No, I don't want to sound political, but actually that's a very important question. So let's go to Ravinder on the human capital part, right? I mean, how do you see the educational sector playing a big role in there? I mean, there is already a lot of momentum towards it. There is, if I want to call it a momentum stoppage, there is already talk about changing H1 parameters completely. I know the Biden policy is different than Trump policy, but there is a lot of talk. So do you believe, are you seeing in the educational sector that we have enough workforce to justify what Pam is kind of laying out the future over next 2 decades? And
I want to add to that frankly, what Pam said is a lot of high-tech stuff, right? The cutting edge healthcare. But I think when Biden and Trump, when they talk about it, they're probably talking about basically manufacturing the widgets, right? Those nuts and bolts and the toothpaste and so do we have that kind of human capital is what probably we are trying to ask.
Well, I actually want to dispel some of that, because I think what happens is we get so caught up in just manufacturing. What we have to think about is in the entire product and delivery scenario, manufacturing is only about 15 to 30% at the most of the entire process, the cost, the employment, the whatever, it's a very small part of it. Like Pam said, R&D, there is a lot of emphasis on the STEM fields, on science, on basic sciences for people to be prepared in those fields. But in addition to manufacturing, you've been hearing in the recent vaccine discussions that have been going on that the bigger problem is not vaccine manufacturing, it's the distribution of the vaccines. How is it going to reach all of those people? So I think that if we continue to focus on manufacturing, which is, again, in a way, an assault on public higher education, because what the politicians would like you to believe is that what we need is really just workforce that can go into factories to manufacture something. We don't need so many of those. What we need is people who are involved in logistics, in financing, in the basic STEM fields, who have learned something on the job with some higher education, because all of our manufacturing is getting automated. So I think that to assume that all we need is people who are going to be able to go into a factory to manufacture a toothpaste or a steel widget or of sorts, I think we have to kind of throw that notion out of the window. Where we are at this point in time is that some of that basic manufacturing can be robotically done. What we need are those robotic engineers. What we need are the scientists who can actually go in and help people like Pam or whoever else to do the scientific research that they're doing, that we prepare the students to be able to understand what's going on and how to be a team player in that kind of environment, how to contribute the most so that it can actually come out to be successful, how to make sure that it gets distributed to the right people at the right price and still make money for the business so that our businesses can continue to thrive and grow more. I think that businesses have realized that going to China or India or whatever hasn't really proven to be as profitable as they thought it was going to be, because the cost of the rest of the stuff is still the same. So even if you end up saving 70% on 20% of your cost, it's not saving you too much if you lose out on other ends. So are the students getting prepared? I think there is a lot of emphasis by the states on STEM fields. There is a lot of emphasis on internships right now. The state is saying, you send your students for internships, we will pay for part of it. Our alumni are getting very interested. Schools, universities are getting very interested in forming partnerships. I was just listening to Anu and I was saying, wow, you want to do entrepreneurship? Our students want to do entrepreneurship. We can partner. Pam was talking about the Mass Live Center. Why not? You know, all of the students in all of the universities would love to have internship opportunities in all of these places and start getting prepared before they actually graduate. And there's a lot of emphasis on all of that in almost all the universities, and almost every university today is setting up, if they haven't set up already, centers for entrepreneurship. All with the same eye that we are going to prepare our students to be able to run the business themselves. So I think we should move away from the thought that we only need people in factories manufacturing something. I think we ought to think about this as a holistic business. And
right.
people can.
You need to be advisor on this presidential teams, actually.
If you don't mind, if I could add 30 seconds to what Raminder said, I totally agree. The manufacturing is not going to be the same. It always will exist, but it won't be the same as what we have, previously seen or experienced. Manufacturing is going to be much more of a precision manufacturing. It's going to be highly skilled people, and you still need to scale these technologies and be affordable, specifically talking about healthcare. In our case, we have technologies that even if we are 3D printing these sensors, they have biological materials, antibodies in there. So it's a completely different training for that versus somebody is 3D printing a cup for coffee, right? And so I think that skill set will have to change. And what we recognize, we're not going to find those people because they don't exist. So we're creating a curriculum and paying for community colleges and colleges for students to be trained, and then we hire them in 2 years when we are ready to roll. So I think that's the kind of thinking that companies will have to do.
Very well said. And I do have a follow-up actually for both of you, but I want to go to Anu because I know that from a Thai angle as well, she'll have some thoughts on it. Go ahead, Anu. And then probably I'll come back to a couple of those points of time permits. Go ahead.
So actually, Anu, while we are going to you, can I ask you specifically, when you say, like when you guys are promoting entrepreneurs, do you bring even those ideas which may not be path breaking, but which are right now needed in the current economy?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we go with whatever you want to do, right? I mean, Thai traditionally, if you look at some of the large successes that came out of Thai Boston or Thai Silicon Valley, they have been tech, right? Tech companies. But then we have Sushil Tuli, who is a great example of something that was not tech, but he's built a huge enterprise. He's built a bank now. I mean, nothing less than that, right? So I don't think we are in any one angle, whatever idea. We recently, we helped an entrepreneur who is building a site. It's like a one-stop shop for senior care. And I think it's really, really relevant now because the number of seniors is very high. It's very difficult to find care. And here is something that's going to match you using technology to someone who is really suited to provide that care so that you can be at home while you age and, don't have to go stay somewhere else. So yeah, any entrepreneurial venture that is filling a need. And I guess that's the definition also of a successful entrepreneurial venture, right? There is a real need and you're filling that real need.
Absolutely. It all boils down to there is a need and fill it up, right? So that was actually one of the fear, and you hear me or Professor both kind of making sure that we are not kind of talking in a bubble of a blue state, which is very heavy tech invested, which is a powerful life science hub, and we are not missing the entire country where actually manufacturing is going to provide a lot of jobs. I mean, all said and done, that's the struggle that India also has, our motherland, right? That with so much progress and so many other factors, unless you create that base where large population can be put in together, I mean, it's really tough to really kind of address the whole situation as a whole. So from that angle, let's go to Sushilji. I mean, pretty much on those lines, right? I know that you are also collaborating with TIE Boston in kind of providing that funding to the entrepreneurs if there is one. And that's the fear, right? So I hope in this environment where people are loosely calling it house rich and cash poor. So there is going to be an economy in 6 months down the line where there is a possibility of having a house rich and cash poor. What does it mean? That potentially you own a house and you can lose your job. So purely from a bank angle, purely from support that you are providing in community, is there any message that you have, Sushilji, that you want to kind of give out to the community? If there are genuinely people in the American community, and I say it with the word of caution that we are so lucky to be in a state which has not really been hit hard. Most of us are in a tech sector, in a sector that is actually growing, not really going down. But that doesn't mean that there are not people around who would want to, if they're listening to us, would want to make sure that we are talking not just high-end tech investment, but also looking at other side of the world. So please, any words from your side, Sushilji?
Absolutely. As you said, house rates but cash poor, and the real estate values, I hope that they do not drop too much, because in this current economy, as people lose their job, or they cannot make their mortgage payments, so they cannot make their rent payments, real estate values could come down. The good thing about Massachusetts is we have biotech and high tech, and we have finance, and we have education and medical. So in those fields, there are less chances of people losing jobs. And the real estate value, I mean, I've always believed in that a person should own a house. If you can afford to buy a house, there are programs where you don't need too much down payment. You can put only 5% down, and you can own a house, own your own house there. And with the currently there are programs. If for any reason somebody cannot make a payment, they can go to their bank and get their payments deferred for 6 months or 3 months, or pay interest only, because banks are in the business of helping people stay in their house, not to get them out of the house. We don't want to be homeowners. We don't want to be the landlords. So every which way, if a customer is serious about getting a help, we are there to help them out.
Got it. Okay.
But you talked about before manufacturing coming to USA. We are one of the largest SBA lenders. We are seeing that many people who are opening companies here, some of the things which are manufactured in China, they want to do it here in Bedford, in those areas. Many people are opening, even if it is to start making masks here instead of getting them produced in China, or many other things. SBA is encouraging anything with manufacturing. They are encouraging us to give loans to those people. There's so many other products there that are available. So I'll say anyone who is trying to start any business, they should talk to their bank and see what is available. And Prag, you mentioned about how did we reach out for the PPP program. So TIE Boston was very helpful. When the PPP funds were available, I sent a communication to the management and the executive director of Thai Basin. And I said, look, Leader Bank does not have these restrictions. We want to give these loans to whoever qualifies. They were so good. They sent it to their whole database to charter members, other members. Within 2 days, I had more than 60 people who came to us. And their biggest thing was that we have an account at this bank and we cannot reach anybody. First of all, I being a charter member, most of them knew me personally. So most of them had my cell phone number, my personal email address. So it was easy for them to reach me. And we had a dedicated team, like working 24 hours really, helping those people out. Because, the Thai Bastion, it does a great job with entrepreneurs. Like when I started Leader Bank, I'm part of charter members since then. They do a great job, and why not we help out to any entrepreneur? I'll encourage they should go to their bank. If nobody listens at their bank, they should come to Sushil to lead. I'll take care of that.
Got it. Wonderful, Sushilji. And before we get too serious, I really felt like, you know what, let's make it a little lighter. So in the name of lighter and being the techie we are, why don't I throw a question and anybody feel free to answer that, okay? Because there is a lot of talk. I mean, we are certainly promoting a lot of entrepreneurship. We are talking about high-tech industry and being the techie that most of us are here. Let me just throw this simple question and let me start with Anu again, going in that circle. Anu, it's a bipartisan issue, so I have no problem in throwing that on the table. Do you believe that that we should really break up these companies, these giants like Facebook, Amazon, and all this, and really kill that entrepreneurial spirit, if you want to use that harsh word? And I don't say it in a lighter way, right? Coming from India, I joke with people, growing up in a country where you pay complete money for a Bajaj scooter and it used to take 14 months to get it. I mean, after you have paid the money, right? So that's this fundamental difference in America and India and many other countries. So do you think it's fair on our part to really talk on those lines where you want to break up these companies, these giants? And again, remember, I mean, if you look at it, the argument that they always make it, 70% of their stocks are owned by pension funds and 401k. So remember when we talk about, so just open, I just want to lighten it up before we really get serious again in terms of the suggestion that you may have for the community. Please go ahead. Anu, start with you, and then we'll go.
Yeah, I remember a statement that my strategy professor made in business school many, many years back, right? He said, the whole point of strategy is so that you can get to a monopoly, right? So any company, when you start, if you want to really grow it big, your goal should be, how can I get it to a monopoly where people can just buy from me? So I feel like putting any kind of artificial inhibitors to prevent them from getting there is actually going to be in the way of their profit motive. And that in turn is just going to make me say, well, you know what? I don't want to grow that big, because once I grow that big, then, I lose it all, or I don't get enough. So I feel it's going to take away that motivation. It's going to take away the motivation for an enterprise to grow big, for an entrepreneur to think big, which I think is really, really key. So no, I don't believe in that, but I will say, and I will go say this against Amazon, when you grow so big and you have a lot of power in your hand and all in your hands, and all you want to do is play to Wall Street and show them profit after profit. And where do you take the money out of? You take it out of the poor workers by not giving them proper healthcare, or not paying them enough wages, being forced to announce that you're doing a minimum wage. Come on, I mean, you're a billion. Jeff Bezos is like a billionaire, right? So why can't you pay the poor guys without the government having to come in, and regulators had to come in and say, how much are you paying and what's the minimum wage? So I do feel there's a role in government which governs, right? I mean, that's the meaning of government. You have to govern those large companies, but I don't think you should stop them from growing and wanting to become a monopoly.
All right, that's a differentiator. It's open to anyone to answer.
Yeah. So I will probably actually, I had a question regarding this because yesterday only there was this, I think Democrats came out with a plan. But just to go back to your point, if you remember, AT&T was this mega monopoly. And I remember I came in 1998 when I was paying 80 cents a minute to make a call to India. And only when AT&T was broken up, into many small bell companies. Only then did the innovation really kickstart, and we saw so much happening down the road. So on my screen, I have Raminder next to Anu. So Raminder, what's your take on regulation? What's your take on the breakup of these 4 big mega companies that we are talking right now?
And then Ravinder, before you answer, I'll give you an example on the just opposite to what Professor gave. So be careful. No, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
Well, I actually want to say we ought to separate entrepreneurship from these publicly traded companies. I agree that for every entrepreneur, the goal is eventually to get to be as big as you can be. But then at the same time, when you get too big, it becomes a little bit more difficult to manage. Can you imagine the plight of shareholders of Amazon or Facebook or anybody else if the entire company is dependent on the wisdom of just one person? God forbid tomorrow we hear some kind of news that this person is now down with COVID. Forget the president. Here, imagine a news coming out that Jeff Bezos caught COVID. I mean, the whole market is going to crash, right? So I see some value in the breakups of companies because I think that they are better managed. There will be more people looking after the same thing. They'll probably be able to grow more when they are under different umbrellas, because once you get to a point where each and every division of yours, for Amazon, for example, if AWS has grown up to be as big as it is, perhaps it can be a separate company on its own. There's no harm in breaking it up. It may even be better for the shareholders. And we know that for businesses, shareholder wealth is important. Now, granted that we think that our corporations many times are not paying attention to the social responsibility that they have. And I think that the idea of shareholder wealth and corporate social responsibility ought to go hand in hand, but I don't see any disincentive for the shareholders, whether the company splits itself into 2 or 3 or not. I think it is more political theater to go one direction or another. Overall, I think that it may be efficiency-wise better for companies to split up when they have actually grown their arms in different directions to that extent that each of them can actually stand on their own.
Got it.
For your example, Prague on the other end.
Right, I'm going to give it, but I just saw the time and decided to hold on to that example. Pam, should you say anything?
Maybe I'll take an attempt to provide the opposite side of the angle. I am breaking them up. I think that monopoly actually kills the innovation, kills the entrepreneurship. In a sense, is that smaller, entrepreneurs just have no chance against the larger ones. And we have seen that many times where, companies just buy them just to kill the competition, right? And that is a reality that does happen. Aside from that, I think the competition really keeps everybody on their toe in terms of delivering the best quality to the customer. And I think that is another aspect of it. Aside from that, from a consumer perspective, competition, not only can provide you a better quality, but also, you have a bargaining power. Monopoly doesn't, right? So when you look at from that perspective, it to me is breaking up of when it's too large, when they are going in trillions. It's time for them to, start looking into what is the core, areas that the public large company is good for, and where the potential innovation can start, and in a sort of a smaller chunks. We've seen companies that have actually had a spin out. If I can give you example of Illumina, they developed these sequencers, for gene sequencing. And what they did was they invested $100 million into a spin out, their own spin out. They gave them instruments, they gave them people, they gave them all that stuff. Bezos, Gates, and everybody else invested in that new company, and their goal was to really find diagnostics for specific genes responsible for specific types of cancer. So it's really looking for needle in a haystack. But because they had a big backing, they were able to do so. Now, Illumina acquired the company, the spin out. They bought up. So it actually turned out to be that Illumina couldn't have, created as much of innovation that the spin out was able to create. So I think it's not bad to break the giants and promote the innovation, create the competition, and potentially provide the best quality for consumers.
Got it. So, but I mean, not necessarily in an example just on the other side, but to even Professor's point, while the call rates went down because of these monopolies, because of these 3-4 major players, your phone cost has come down to 87 to 89%. So don't forget that the cost of phones used to be the crazy if you compare it. Sushilji, any word from your side, or otherwise we'll go and have a word from all of you towards the community as a whole.
Actually, Sushilji, I want to ask you, do you want to become the Bank of America?
So here is my position. If I set a goal to become Bank of America, and then somebody comes to me and say, we want to break you up, I wouldn't like that.
Yes, that's a great answer.
Okay? But at the same time, Sanjay, as you talked about AT&T, and I remember in the late 80s, early 90s, when AT&T was split into 5 different companies.
Yeah.
At that time, it looked like the stock price has gone down so much, and it did. But just think how much everybody benefited. All those stocks are back to where AT&T used to be. Consumer benefited because there were more products, more services, and it was less expensive. Similarly, with these big companies, the Amazons and Googles, and we're talking about, there is no harm breaking them. It will create more opportunities for so many new entrepreneurs to offer those kind of services. There'll be more competition, and shareholders will benefit. It's like immediately it feels like a shareholder is going to lose out money, but they're going to get this split share from various companies, and they will benefit. So now, take my Leader Bank's example. We created a product and we spun it out of Leader Bank because we felt that there's a more value spinning it out as a separate company out of Leader Bank. And we're going to do many other products we're going to create, and hopefully we'll spin it out. So I think it's better because it does create other opportunities, and it stops from a company to become too big.
Got it. The idea behind this question was to get our Facebook audience excited. I hope there is some action there and people have their own opinions. But having said that, and by the way, your product, I think you're talking about Z deposit and Z rent. Right? Very impressive, very impressive. But unfortunately, we don't have much time to talk about it. We are right at the hour mark. So why don't we, and let me go the way this question came on the other side. So Sushilji, from you, then Pam, you, then Raminder, you, and Anu will be closing with you. The remarks for the community as a whole. I mean, this is one of the most successful minority community. We still have a lot of ways to go around. But having said that, I mean, are there some words from all of you 4 stars of our business community as to how we should see this COVID time, and don't hide your head in the sand, rather treat this as an opportunity time. This is the time when the new ideas, the new winners will come out. So one by one, over to you, starting with Sushilji.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, my advice is to everybody, stay safe. Getting COVID is not going to be fun. Do your best to stay safe. As a banker, save money. Whatever you earn, don't spend it. Save as much as you can save for rainy days, for your children, for grandchildren, for everybody. And for entrepreneurs, if you have an idea, right, implement it. Because there's never like do it today. Don't wait that I'm going to do it in the future or sometime. If you think of something, implement it. Don't be afraid of failure. I was never. If I was afraid of failure, I wouldn't be where I am. So my advice to community as a whole is believe in yourself. If you have an idea, implement it.
Great. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. Yeah. Pam?
Well, I echo Sushil's, advice in a sense is that this is an incredible opportunity. As much the COVID has made so much, devastation, but also have presented a lot of opportunities, specifically in the healthcare space. If you have an idea related to any digital health supply chain, and diagnostics, even advanced manufacturing, please, this is the time for you to leverage. There is a huge public money available. There's a huge private money available. And there are a lot of resources here in Massachusetts that actually can help you pursue your venture. And I hope that you consider, pursuing your ideas in the healthcare space, as I am, not that biased, but it is an area that is growing and will continue to grow.
Thank you, Pam. Ramendra, please.
I would just once again say, first, stay safe, wear a mask, social distance, and all of that. But I do want to say, I think this is the time, of course, innovate and everything, but that our whole community should lean on each other. IAGB has put this together. I guess anytime people have questions, we should be ready to allow people to lean on us, and we should also be ready to lean on others whenever we need anything. So if anything, and also many of us have already, when we first came in, we were just kind of a close-knit community. We have obviously expanded ourselves to go outside of our community and make connections outside of our community with others. I would say expand that. I'm going to take it back to my personal life. I married the love of my life who came from a different culture. Our kids have now, even though they're nowhere close to us geographically, they're nowhere close to us in our professions, but they're close enough to us in that sense that they too married loves of their lives from different cultures. So start adopting that different culture. Let's become more of a multicultural kind of a society rather than being more inward bound. And especially, if anything, this thing has taught us, let's have love for everybody. That's what I would say.
Thank you very much. Anu will be closing it. Go ahead with you from the panel side, and then I'll call our President Sanjay after you. But please, Anu, go ahead.
Okay, so I don't feel like I'm an expert to tell the community, do this, go into entrepreneurship, go into manufacturing. Honestly, I don't believe I have that expertise to say that. But what I will say is that all of us on this panel and a large part of the Indian community, we've really, really benefited from this country, right? The immigration that allowed us to come here, to build companies, to get education in really high, very good educational institutions with aid, all of this, we've all benefited. It's time to pay it forward. So yes, we still have to support our community, obviously, but it's also time for us to look outside our community and say, what else is going on? If there is unrest, are we supporting the people who are actually going through a very difficult? So that is what I would say is let's do that. And finally, to the whole debate about should manufacturing go, should it stay, etc. I'm a believer in the whole theory of free markets, and I'm a huge believer that markets will find their efficiencies. And I don't think artificially putting blocks saying, don't let it go to this country, let it not come here, or you set the price, I set the price. I really don't think that's the way to go. And I think economics has proved that. So just go with the flow. And in these COVID times, do the best job you are doing where you are.
Thank you very much, Anu. And let's go to our President, Sanjay. Sanjay, please take over.
Thank you, Parag. First of all, huge thanks to our panelists, Sushil Tuleji, Anu Chitrapu, and Pam Randhawa for joining us today and having this very interactive and insightful conversation, shedding light on many topics. I truly appreciate all your time, and on behalf of IAGB, I wish you all the best. Thank you, Parag and Sanjay Kudrumati, Vaishali, for this great discussion. Let me remind all our audience on Facebook and YouTube that IAGB is an apolitical organization and we are not endorsing anyone's opinion, any candidate, or any party. This is a series of conversation on issues and policies that matter to the Indian American community. In the past, we had panel discussions on various topics, including conversations with some of the candidates from Indian American community who are running for the offices. Today, it's all about the business and how the policies are impacting the businesses in our community. This is part of our civic engagement initiative, and it is to create awareness and educate at the grassroots level and encourage more to understand, involve in the civic activities, and represent ourselves with a stronger voice. Well, as we all know, the election day is quickly approaching. Voting is a fundamental right and is an important duty for all of us. There are many ways to exercise your right. Mail in your ballot, vote early, or vote on the day, November 3rd. But do take that step. Please do vote and make your voice heard and make our Indian American community voice heard. Again, thank you all for joining us in this conversation. Signing off for today. Be safe, take care, and good night.
Stay safe, everyone. Thank you very much.